My name is John Moffat, and this is a brief introduction to the performance management exam, which used to be called paper F5. But if unfortunately you failed paper F5 and you're retaking, then don't worry, nothing's changed apart from the name. However, what I want to do is talk about how to go about studying for the exam, but first of all, an outline of what the exam's about. And there are the syllabus headings. The full syllabus is on the ACCA website. And what this all relates to, it's a follow-on from what used to be called paper F2, the management accounts exam, which you should all either have sat or studied at university because you're exempt from it. But it's still relating to the management accountant, and the job of the management accountant is to improve the performance of the business, to look at ways of performing better, of becoming more profitable, and so on. And those 4 syllabus headings are all things you really should have heard of from the management accounting paper, paper F2. But in this exam, they are taken quite a bit further. Costing techniques. Essentially costing, if we're producing desks, we need to calculate the cost of a desk. And simple costing was in the earlier exam. But here we do look at more advanced techniques in particular situations. That's how we might go about different ways of arriving at a cost. It's looking at more modern approaches. Just to give you one tiny example, it used to, a long time ago, when I was young, in days when there wasn't as much competition as there is now, if we were making a product, if I was making computers, mind you, a long time ago they didn't exist, but if we were making a product, it was very much a question of, how much is it costing us to make? $100, right. We want to make a profit, let's charge $120. But these days, there's so much competition that a more modern approach is something called target costing, where we work backwards in a sense. We say, well, because of the competition, what price do we think we could realistically charge? Maybe realistically, we can only charge $100. Otherwise everybody else would be taking our business otherwise. And then we say, well, how much profit do we want to make? Maybe I want to make 20%, $20. Right, that means we have to find a way of making this. If we're selling at 100, making a profit of 20, we have to find a way of selling it, producing it rather, at $80 or less. And then we search for ways of saving money such as we can produce it at $80. Now that's just an outline. That's something called target costing. And all of this I go through in the lectures, which I'll explain later. But it's just one example of what are called advanced costing techniques. The second area, decision-making techniques. And again, this covers all sorts of individual areas. But something some of you may have heard of from university, linear programming, where maybe we make 2 products that use the same material. I make desks, I make chairs, and they both use wood. We can sell lots of both of them, but the problem is this year there's only a limited amount of wood available. What shall I use it for? Shall I use it to make desks? Maybe they use a lot of wood, but they earn more money. Or shall I make chairs? They don't earn as much money for each chair, but I could make a lot more because they use less wood. Well, again, to go into more detail is silly. We've got full lectures on them coming. But it is just one tiny example of a decision that needs making where the management accountant will provide the information, will do the arithmetic. Budgeting and control. Again, in the previous exam, or whatever you did at university, you should be aware of what I mean by budgets. plans for next year, and control, getting a standard cost so we can look at variances, compare what we're actually spending with what we should be spending. Well, that was examined in the previous paper, and don't worry, I do revise it in the lectures for performance management. But performance management, it goes further. We look in more detail at different situations. And finally, performance management. Our job is to improve performance. Well, we need to say, how can we manage it? How can we measure it? How can we check year by year where performance is improving and where perhaps it isn't? And quite important in this exam, not just looking at purely financial performance, obviously we want more profit, but looking also at what we call non-financial performance. We may be making more profit this year, but if the quality of what we're producing is going down, well, if we're not careful, bad quality in future years will start losing money. So again, there are only the four main headings, but under each of the headings there are a lot of individual topics which need learning. And let me stress right from the beginning that although there's quite a lot of calculations involved, which individually aren't hard, it's just there's a lot of them, the exam overall, always approximately 50% is calculations, approximately 50% is what people call theory, but is writing. It doesn't involve calculations, because the exam is very keen to test that you understand what you're doing and that you're not simply learning rules without really knowing what's going on. As far as the exam is concerned, the structure, there are 3 sections to the exam. Section A, there are 15 short questions, each of which is 2 marks. Section B is what I call 3 scenarios, where there's more information, but then on one bit of information, there are then 5 short 2-mark questions. And so 3 of those, so in total another 15 2-mark questions. Section C is 2 what we call long form questions, 2 full questions, 20 marks each, which will involve both calculations and writing, or if you prefer the word theory. As to how it's examined, incidentally, sorry, I must say the 2 section C questions, these 2 long ones, the examiner said, it's not awfully helpful this, but it will come from, those 2 questions will come from those 3 areas of the syllabus, which I'll say doesn't help an awful lot, it just misses out the costing area. But all those areas, all areas of the syllabus will be tested in section A and section B. It's section C where it'll be 2 of those 3. Anyway, back to where I was. There are still at the moment 2 types of exam you can take, either paper-based or computer-based. Now, it depends which country you're in. You're going to have to check on the ACCA website. Ultimately, it'll be computer-based everywhere, but at the moment there are still some countries where you do it on paper. Now, the level of the exam is exactly the same. It's the same structure, sections A, B, C. If you're in a country where you're doing the paper-based one, then you get 3 hours and 15 minutes. And certainly, you'll have seen on a previous sheet, there's 100 marks in total. You get 3 hours and 15 minutes, and the pass mark's 50%. If, as most of you'll be doing, you do the computer-based, then you do get longer, 3 hours 20 minutes, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Sections A and B are all objective test questions. Some of them you'll just choose a choice of 4 answers and you tick the right one. Others you have to calculate a figure and type it in, and so Section C, you'll type out full answers, but instead obviously of writing by hand, you'll do them on the computer, and there's a built-in spreadsheet and a built-in word processor. So when it's calculations, you'll use a spreadsheet. When it's theory, you'll use the word processor. And it is vital that you get used to what it's like. There are examples on the ACCA website for you to try, where you can actually work through an exam to see how the style of the questions, how it's set out, how you navigate, and the built-in spreadsheet and word processor. It'll be like what you should already be used to at work or wherever, but it is important you practice on it. The reason you get longer is that there are an extra 5 questions in either section A or section B, which don't actually count towards the overall mark, but you don't know which they are. So you will find an extra 5 2-mark questions floating around. The reason they're there is to make sure the level of the exam is standard, because given its computer base, questions are selected at random, and so everybody's getting a slightly different exam on the computer, but they need a way of monitoring that the level is the same, that is being fair, which is why they have these extra 5 questions which they can check on. So it may sound a bit odd, there are actually 110 marks in the exam. You get longer to do it, but these 5 questions, which you are not told which they are, but the marks for them don't count, whether you got them all right or whether you got them all wrong. Pass mark, 50%. For studying, everything on our website is free of charge, and there's enough on the website to cover, well, it covers everything needed to be able to pass the exam well. There are notes and lectures. There's lecture notes to download, but they are lecture notes. It's vital that you watch the lectures that go with them, because it's in the lectures that I work through the examples, I explain and I expand on the notes. The two go together. And between them, as I say, they cover everything needed to be able to pass the exam well. In addition, you'll find what we call flashcards, little memory joggers on particularly things like definitions. There are tests at the end of each chapter. There's an online test you can go to where there are 5 or 6 questions of a similar type to those in sections A and B of the exam. There are forums. One forum where you can help other students, you can help each other, talk about problems you're having, but also a forum which is Ask the Tutor forum, where if you come across any problems, anything you don't understand, then if you type your question in this forum, then well, I always reply within 24 hours. So that's everything you need for actual studying, but it's also vital that you buy, I'm afraid we don't supply this, it's not free, that you buy a revision kit or an exam kit from one of the ACCA approved publishers, which is either BPP or Kaplan. They contain lots of relevant past exam questions, together with lots of other exam standard questions. And practice is vital. You've got to study all the topics, but then you really must practice to get used to the style of the questions, to get used to the wording of the questions, to get used to the tricks in the questions, to make sure you've fully grasped everything, and to get used to the speed. Okay, there are past exam questions on the ACCA website, but there's a limited number. And even if you manage to get hold of older ones, the danger is over the years, syllabus has changed, some new things have appeared, some things have disappeared. You've got to have a current edition of a revision kit, because everything in there is relevant to the current exam. Finally, before hopefully you start studying and going through the lectures, a couple of ways you can help us. Yeah, everything we offer is free, but the only way we can keep improving and expanding what we offer is when more and more people are using us. So please spread the word, tell your friends, get them using Open Tuition. Subscribe to the YouTube page. It doesn't cost anything, but in the top left of the lectures, if you hover your mouse, there's a little button you can press just to subscribe. And do help other students in the forums. I said there's a general performance management forum where you can help each other. And helping other people, explaining something to someone else, it's actually a very good way of remembering things. If you can explain it, you can be that much more confident that you do actually understand it. So there we are. Now you can carry on and download the notes and start working through the lectures. And hopefully you'll enjoy it.